Habemus Papam, bitches. All right. Hello and welcome back to the Leave, Laugh, Love podcast. We're your hosts, Evelyn and Veronica. This is a podcast where we talk about life after high demand religion. When we were deconstructing, there weren't a lot of resources about the crazy kind of Catholicism we found ourselves in. So we decided to be a resource for others in that place. We may have left the church, but we're still laughing and loving. No matter where you're at with your faith, we're so happy you're here today. Hello and welcome, friends. This once again was not what we planned on recording today. And I usually work on Thursdays, but I randomly had the day off. So when I woke up literally to the news that there was a new pope, I locked the fuck in. I have a 6-page Google Doc and I'm just going to yap about everything that I have been able to find out about this new pope. Some good things, some bad things. With that, let's dive into it. Also, this episode is coming out on a... Oh, sorry. Yes, we will start with small group. I was just going to say this episode is coming out on a Thursday. I'm not sure if we're going to have a Sunday episode or not this week because we were going to do Bishop Barron, Father Mike Schmitz, and like the politicization of American Catholicism, which obviously having an American Pope like weirdly ties into. So I want to maybe rework that episode a little bit. So this might be our light episode for the week. You might get another one on Sunday. I'm not totally sure yet, but we obviously just had to throw this out today. And I have time to edit after Veronica and I get off this call. So, yes, small group. Veronica, welcome to small group. What is your rose and thorn of the week?
Well, my rose is white smoke. Habemus Papam, bitches. And that's what I sent in our group chat. I was surprised nobody had said anything about it yet. It'd been like 10 minutes and I was in a work meeting and I was like, wait a second, what's going on? And so that my thorn is probably, I've just had... like work has been rough this week. My anxiety has been anxietying. So trying to stay sane. But I feel like I've gotten really quality like friend time, like chatting with people lately, especially with all the Pope stuff going on. I feel like I've been talking to all my different friends and hearing what their thoughts are, what's going on. So I've been feeling really slay about that. Also, my rose, obligatory rose that I forgot about. I've like had a crazy week. My brain is not in one place. As Evelyn knows, but I did get to meet Gay Extrat on Sunday for the first time. I got to pick him up when he was in town in DC. So I recorded an episode for his podcast about discernment in person. So that'll be super cool. We'll, of course, post that when that comes out. So I'm super stoked about that.
I'm so excited to listen to it. I loved when Colin came and visited you and I got to edit the episode you guys did on Dayspring because it was recording in person is so nice. I wish our podcast could be recorded in person. Every time I say that, Veronica's like, you're the one who moved to the West Coast. And I'm like, and you're the one who decided you wanted to stay living on the East Coast. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
But anyway,
stand still on
alas, we are. Actually, quite into that, I just wanted to throw out there that I have had a burst of motivation around the podcast. Veronica and I have been both doing a lot of things to try to improve the quality. Veronica made some like temporary internet fixes right now, but then this Monday, I think, like has a higher streaming internet kicking in. We're also looking into like different platforms to record and edit, everything like that. We had mentioned this in last week's episode, and then we literally had technical issues where we couldn't even publish that episode. So I just wanted to like, throw it out there again. I know that it's like not the most high quality production value at all times. Veronica and I also both have day jobs, so it's not like we just sit here and yap into the void for a living. But I have really been motivated to kind of walk in and do some higher quality episodes. We want to start uploading to YouTube, things like that. And so I was so excited. It's just exciting in general. But when I woke up today, I'd already been planning to like really walk in on the Bishop Barron episode today. And then I got to really walk in on this. And so I hope this is a good episode for you guys. I'm excited. Rose and Thorn. Let's see. Rose. I'm really loving the new family that I'm nannying for. They're sweet. That's probably my rose. I wouldn't say the Pope as my rose just because over the course of my research.
No,
I think, I mean, it's definitely
It's not
It's
like
just like
my
it's a
rose of
rose on
like
the
I'm
front
super
of like
excited about him. It's just a rose that there's a new pope and there was white smoke and we can say Habemus Papam and talk to all of our friends about the fact what we think about our new pope. It's not, I don't know. It's just I'm riding the
no, for sure.
high of
For
being
sure.
Catholic.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say like I saw someone say I'm excited about this pope in the same way I would be excited if some other former Republican president, I can't remember exactly which one she said, but if some other former Republican president had been elected instead of Trump being elected, it's like, okay, like it's not like my first choice, but also there were worse options.
Right, right.
So that's like the energy around that. Thorn, honestly, I'm having a great week, and that's I feel semi-rare. I can be a negative person, and also 2025 has been a crazy year. So I'm happy to have a Thorn going on
That's
right now.
awesome.
Are you ready to get into this? I'm really hyped.
Oh my God,
I'm
please,
really
because
excited.
let me just say that when the white smoke came, I was in the middle of what turned into a 4-hour meeting at work that kind of like went from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And so the first
Mm-hmm.
part of the meeting was rough and I almost started crying. And then we just kept talking. So I kind of calmed down and I was okay. But then the white smoke stuff happened and nobody was sending any messages. And I was like, guys, where is this information coming from? They're like, it's the live stream. You got to watch the live stream. And I'm like, I'm stuck in a meeting. I need to know the details. So basically, I don't know anything. So this is wonderful that you have 6 pages of notes that you can give me all the information because I just have like a basic intro so far to headlines
Okay.
without actually knowing details. So I'm excited.
Incredible. Okay, so also I just want to like throw a little disclaimer that I'm a lover of research. I'm a lover of like, citing my sources. And had this been something I had maybe had more time, like this would be more organized with me saying like, okay, this came from this and this came from this. Obviously, I like pulled things from things I consider to be like repeatable sources, like fairly mainstream. Okay, repeatable as in there's some sources that are like church sources, so like they're repeatable on the subject or like NPR or things like that. So it's not this is just like this is all from I would say credible places and I'll include some of the links I pulled things from and I have a few things that I'll reference like specifically where I'm pulling it from. But yeah, if I had had a little more time to organize it, I would be like but I have a ton of quotes that I pulled, tweets that he's tweeted, tweets he's reposted, just like quotes from his interview. There's some interview he did with the Vatican, I think 2 years ago. Lots of stuff like that. So we're going to get into it. Our new pope is Pope Leo the 14th, otherwise known as Cardinal Robert Prevost. I hope I'm saying that right. The name Leo is actually like an important thing to point out and to dig into because usually it has some kind of tie into the predecessors who have also chosen the name. So it's important to note that Leo the 13th, so the last Pope Leo before this one, was the first Pope of the 20th century and was the father of the Catholic social justice movement. So we club that for him. It's giving Pope Francis energy. A little bit of like an overview, I guess. He's considered like a church centrist, which a lot of people have been. I've seen people on the more liberal side saying, and obviously there were more liberal options, but I would like to remind everyone that Pope Francis was considered a church centrist when he came into office, and then he just became considered like super, super liberal over the course of like the work that he did. So this could go different ways. He is our first American Pope, so that's like a thing that I had mixed feelings about when I found that out because I don't like the idea of having an American Pope at the same time as Trump, but actually also, and we'll get into this more, he hates Trump. He hates the Trump administration. He's actually been hating on the Trump administration on the internet for the past. So that's not even like a new thing. Like he hates Trump. So that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah.
Veronica, your mic is muted, right?
Yeah, well, I was just saying yeah along and realized my mic was still muted from
Oh,
when I
okay.
stood up to get my knitting. But it makes me, okay, I was upset about the American Pope. I could not believe that that was the case, especially that we're going to end up getting an American
Mm-hmm.
Pope and I get the pleasure of that without the pleasure of actually having heard of this American cardinal prior to that. That felt annoying.
Right.
It's like not one of the ones I know about. However, it gives me hope for the Catholic Church, and especially the Catholic Church in America, that we have what's considered a centrist pope right now who is being called all
Yeah.
over the internet a nasty Marxist simply because he's
I know, it's so funny to
anti-MAGA.
me.
Right. So I'm just really happy that he's
Yep.
not MAGA. And I think that will be good for the Catholic Church in America because, as we've talked about before, and as we're working on for this other episode, it just ties in so perfectly because you already like had this big plan for an American Christian nationalist Catholic movement going on, that now we have this American Pope who I hope will help combat that by not being part of the like American Christian
Right.
nationalist thing that's going on, that it will help the Catholic Church have something else to look for that's not Matt Fradd and Father Mike Schmitz and Bishop Robert Barron, except like our literal Pope. So I think that's kind of a
Right.
plus. So I think that's kind of a win. So I am kind of
I
relieved, even
agree.
though I'm mad that I think America just needed the ego. Like we didn't need the ego boost, you know? So that's a bummer.
Right. Exactly. Like, I didn't like that Donald Trump was, like, happy about it.
Yeah.
But wait till
Yeah.
you find
Yeah.
out that
Oh
this guy
yeah.
actually can't stand him.
Yeah. JD Vance is
So,
mad.
yeah, that was the thing. So then, okay, this is a quote from Bishop Robert Barron, interestingly enough, as I compiled my other episode on Bishop Robert Barron. But he had said this was obviously prior to the results coming out this
A
morning.
few days ago.
Look, until America, yeah, it was recent. Look, until America goes into political decline, there won't be an American pope. Or sorry, he was quoting Father Robert Prevost in that part. He was saying Father Robert Prevost, or
No, I
Bishop
think he
Robert
was
Prevost had said,
a dead bishop. It's a previous dead
"Oh,
bishop of
okay, I'm so
Chicago.
sorry."
No, it's okay. I only knew that because the
Like I
quote says,
said,
yeah, no, I only know this
oh,
because the
sorry. I was
quote,
just gonna say this could have been a little pulled together better.
no, it's fine. The quote was, it just says like Bishop so and so of Chicago of happy memory. So that made me think that it not, I can't remember what his name was or anything, but anyway, you're so right. It's so funny. And until America goes
Okay,
into
I think
political
I maybe mixed it
decline.
up because it was another
Oh,
bishop
really?
from Chicago, but he was saying, look, he was quoting this other bishop who had been one of his founders, not founders, I guess like a mentor. There we go. And this person had said, look, until America goes into political decline, there won't be an American pope. And then this is the part where it's actually Bishop Barron talking. He says, and his point was, if America is running the world politically, culturally, economically, they don't want America running the world religiously. So I think there's some truth to that we're such a superpower and so dominant, they don't want to give us also control over the church. Which like I think is also interesting to think about, just like from this whole like American Christian nationalism perspective, because we're actually like not really running the world
Right.
culturally or economically. Like there is a certain extent to like, the Westernism of it all and the Western domination. Obviously, like that exists, but also I think that America's considered a joke right now. So like maybe this is like the decline that this former bishop had been referring to. I actually might agree with him. I think we've gone into decline and now we get our American Pope. So fun. Okay, here's some biographical details, and then we'll get into like his political opinions. Okay. And by political, some things are obviously like American political issues, but also like church politics. Anyway, okay, biography. He got his Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from, do you say Villanova? Is it Villanova or Villanova? Is it pronounced like
Villanova.
Hispanic or is it,
No,
okay, it's pronounced
Villanova.
white.
Yeah.
Okay, Villanova University in 1977.
Oh my God,
And then he got
Villanova.
a Master's of Divinity. He got a Master's of Divinity from Catholic Theological Union in Chicago and a
Licentiate.
licentiate, thank you to Veronica, the person who's actually spoken any of these words out loud and not just read them, and a doctorate in canon law from the Pontifical College of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome. His doctoral thesis was on the role of the local prior in the Order of St. Augustine. He was ordained in 1982. He served at the Order of St. Augustine long before being appointed by Francis to head the Dicastery for Bishops, a powerful Vatican office that oversees episcopal appointments worldwide. He was a missionary and bishop in Peru the Bishop of Chiclayo. I really, again, probably might be butchering that. From 2015 to 2023, and then became a naturalized citizen. So this is the interesting thing. He's a dual citizen of America and Peru. And the Italians call him the least American among the Americans, which is meant to be like a compliment. So he was considered like the only American who really had a chance because of that. And I thought that was interesting. He's actually, yeah, he spent most of his time as a bishop like outside of the United States. He's a dual citizen, and he's like very pro Catholic social teaching, which I think I referenced a little bit before. Okay, let's get into the Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just have a question about him before you jump into the politics. So he was a bishop in Peru for a long time, but he was also in charge of the dicastery for bishops. Was he in the Vatican for that, or has he been holding that position while also being in Peru? Does he work remote?
Yes. Not totally clear on that. I forgot to mention, I forgot to get into that a little deeper, because the dicastery of bishops, he's basically in charge of like election within the church, which is like a super powerful position. I'm not sure if these were like separate. I don't know if he's been living. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me look it up. Leo the 14th dicastery of bishop, because I'm just really interested, I guess. I spelled dicastery wrong. He was made a cardinal in 2023 and appointed head of the dicastery for bishops, a powerful... Oh, so maybe it was then that he left Peru, because he's only been in that since 2023, and that's when you said he was in Peru. So let me go and look real quick.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Peru bishop. Yeah, so it sounds like maybe he left Peru in 2023 when he went to the Vatican to do that. Okay, that checks out. So he hasn't been in the Vatican for very long. He would have only been there for the last 2 years.
No.
Wow, okay.
It's very short, which I think that was something I was reading in a different article too, that some people liked him because he was less intertwined with the Vatican politics of it all.
Sorry, I didn't realize that would be there while you were talking. I didn't realize you could see it in there. I didn't want to forget to take a picture of us recording, and then all of a sudden, my camera comes up while Evelyn's talking.
Veronica's like the mom who's like taking pictures on like the sideline of the soccer game, and I'm just like,
you're doing so good with your presentations,
hey queen. I can't. Okay. Oh, but yeah, so some people thought it was like actually a huge pro that he wasn't as entrenched in Vatican politics because he's so newly appointed to that position. And then obviously the more like conservative Italian-centric cardinals took issue with that. Like they wanted someone who was really deeply entrenched in Vatican politics. Okay, let's get into it. He supported Pope Francis's change in a pastoral can I read? He supported Pope Francis's change in pastoral practice to allow divorced and civilly remarried Catholics to receive Holy Communion. So that's like a little fun tidbit. I have like most of this organized into categories, but I didn't know where to put that. So that's just, you just get that. Okay, now we've got like hating on Trump. Go ahead.
Did Pope actually do that? Did he actually Pope Francis allow divorced and remarried to receive communion? Or did he just support?
Yes, because it's like civilly remarried. It's not like they're going to change he didn't change like the Catholic practice of allowing you to remarry in the church.
That's so interesting.
It was just one of those things where it's like the thing with like blessing on same-sex couples where it's like a little bit progressive, but not like super progressive.
I mean,
but then
that
it's
was
like way too progressive for the conservatives.
Communion for divorced and remarried couples was a huge thing. It was sort of like, it's sort of the tip of the iceberg. It's like the start of the slippery slope, because then you want women priests in same-sex marriage and all this other stuff. And that's kind of where it starts. But that's really interesting. I totally missed that entirely. But Slay, glad he also supports that. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yes. No, you're all good. It's good to clarify. Okay, this next category I'm calling like hating on Trump / like Twitter activism. But there's other tweets sprinkled into other categories too. So there's that. So he tweeted, JD Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others. Oh, wait. He did tweet that JD Vance is wrong, but apparently also in a Fox News interview, he said, JD Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others. And then he reposted a tweet from Bishop Burbidge. And this was like in the middle of 2020, like Black Lives Matter, all of that going on, he reposted this tweet that said, "We continue to pray for Mr. George Floyd and his family in his honor, and as we approach Pentecost, we ask the Holy Spirit to heal our wounds. May all hatred, violence, and prejudice be eradicated so that we may live in harmony and in the peace of our Lord Jesus." Which I actually think it's crazy. Not that should be crazy, but that is like, I think in the American Catholic Church would be considered
We
kind
have a
of a far
pope.
left take to even address the George Floyd thing.
Wow. We have a pope who tweeted in support of Black Lives Matter in 2020.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
That's
So
crazy.
that I thought was interesting. He also tweeted at one point, and I forgot to write down the date on this one, but he tweeted, "It's time to end the death penalty." It was just like this super short tweet. I'm sure it was like around some case that was going
Right.
on. But yeah, we love it. Also, he didn't tweet at all in 2024, and he's tweeted like 5 times in 2025. And like one of them was to hate on JD Vance, one of them was to hate on Trump and his immigration policy. 2 were for the Pope's health, and I forget what the 5th one was. So I just love that also. Okay,
So far, he's an unproblematic king.
we're about to make him a problematic friend, though not friend. I don't know. He had some not great things. So I saw pretty much immediately, I saw people mentioning that he had mishandled some sex abuse cases. Obviously, these things are just like so covered up in the Catholic Church that it's like hard to get a straight answer, even looking at the internet as far as like what went on. The first thing I found, and this was reported on by The Pillar, which I trust. They did a lot of reporting on the abuse cases at Franciscan as well. So yeah, they posted that he was a bishop. Like this was under him being a bishop. So he allowed a priest accused of child abuse to live in a rectory around the corner from a Catholic school. And this is what the College of Cardinals report says, which again, like it with a grain of salt. I'm just saying what it says. The College of Cardinals report says Provost is said to have never authorized that particular situation. The priest was not an Augustinian, and it took place before the Dallas Charter. More recently, but then also this is also from the College of Cardinals report. And this one, when I read that one, I was like, okay, that's bad. It's obviously bad, but it also could have very easily just been like a clerical error. You know what I mean? But this second one is way worse. Recently, questions were raised about Provost's knowledge and handling of abuse allegations in his former diocese of Chiclayo. 2 priests were accused of molesting 3 young girls, with the allegations surfacing in April 2022 during Provost's tenure as bishop. The case has been a source of frustration for local Catholics due to its slow progress and unclear resolution. Some accusers have claimed Provost failed to properly investigate the allegations and covered up for the accused priest, but the diocese has firmly denied this, stating that Provost followed proper procedures. They stated that Provost personally received and attended to the victims and reportedly opened an initial canonical investigation. He also encouraged the victims to take the case to civil authorities. In July 2022, Provost sent the results of the investigation to the Dicastery for the Doctrine of Faith for review. His supporters stress that he has documents from the DDF and the papal nunciature.
Nuncio or nunciature. Actually, I don't know about that one, but
Okay.
it's nuncio if it ends with an O, so it's something like that.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Again, I forgive my Latin. In Peru, which also indicate that he was not only attentive to the presumed victims, but that he did all required in church law in following procedures set out for these cases. However, in May 2025, so literally like now, allegations emerged that the diocese paid $150,000 to the 3 girls to silence them. These 3 girls were described as longtime public. Oh my God, Veronica, that hurt my ear.
I'm so sorry. You're hurting my soul.
These 3 girls were described as longtime public critics of Provost. The girls reportedly blamed Provost for covering up their sexual abuse by the priests. These allegations, reported in Info Vaticana, described the Peruvian scandal, which was the subject of a national television report, including an interview with the girls last fall as the stone in the shoe for Cardinal Provost. So it's one of those things where it's unfortunately politicized, right? Because it's okay with the timing. I feel like the energy it gives is, oh my God, what was that one guy? Kavanaugh. It's giving like Kavanaugh energy where
Yeah.
the allegations come out right around like the person gaining political power. And so then people are like, maybe they just want to ruin his reputation. But then it's also, but we have to believe survivors. And there's just
Can't
complications
deny
around it.
if they
I'm
were
always
paid
going to
hush
err.
money, like you can't lie
But
with the fact that,
so
like, if that's
basically,
true.
my understanding is that it's just self-reported from these three girls. Like, as far as
Okay.
I was able to find, I didn't see any like court proceeding when the lawsuit leaked from the Franciscan abuse case. There was
Yeah.
like all of that documentation of the hush money. As far as I
Right.
can tell, I haven't seen that for this, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying, like, in the things I was
Right.
reading, it didn't come up. So again, I'm not saying one way or another. I obviously would always prefer to err on the side of believing victims over believing people involved in the institution of the Catholic Church with a history of covering up sexual abuse.
You know what is
That's just
getting?
the information that's available on the internet.
That's I get that. Okay, thank you. And when giving like if one of the TOR friars was elected pope and everyone would be, well, they followed all legal and diocesan regulation regarding these
Mm-hmm.
cases. And it's like, okay, well, we're still really pissed about this. Or it's giving when Father Gregory was from
Yep.
public ministry so that they died look into him. And he was still on campus. He just wasn't allowed to say mass. And then he was reinstituted in everything he and Father Dave was like, "Oh, well, I mean, the diocese said that there was no sexual or legal misconduct, so yay." And I'm like, "Don't we have a higher bar?" Okay, so he followed our of canon law.
Right.
Is that the bar? Like, is this still okay? So, I mean, it's hard to tell. That doesn't, I'm not trying to make a statement with
Yeah.
that, just so much as like, okay, I'm glad he was following church protocol up to snuff to still exam, but that's like my perspective.
What you were saying, actually, as I was reading this and like copy and pasting it into my little doc, the thing you said about the Steubenville, and also if you guys are like new to our podcast, we did an episode with Jen Morrison called Making Stories Heard, I believe, where we dove into this in a lot more depth. So if you're not familiar with the Franciscan abuse cases, Franciscan is where we attended college. Anyway, there was a situation where a priest was behaving incredibly problematically, but technically not illegally. A lot of concerns were raised around the fact that basically giving him a slap on the wrist and letting him go and continue to work with students, continue to live on a college campus, continue to be a minister to young, vulnerable teenage and 20-something-year-old girls in their dorm building, while could just lead to a far worse situation if it wasn't nipped in the bud. And so that's, yeah, unfortunately what it's giving, like following protocol. I'm glad that happened, but it's not always enough. And it's like not a get out of jail free card to just say, oh, we followed protocol. But it's just, yeah. Okay. These are some things he said. He had an interview with the Vatican a little bit ago, or I don't know. I want to say this was like maybe 2 years ago. It was during Pope Francis. They asked him a
Got
couple
his
questions about
position.
abuse in the church. Yeah, yeah. They asked, but they were, so it was just, it went over a bunch of stuff. So I'm just going to read this to you guys. Okay, the question they asked was, the new norms for combating abuse have increased the responsibility of bishops who are called to act promptly to answer for any delays and omissions. How is this task experienced by the bishop? And he responded, we are on a journey with regard to this as well. There are places where good work has already been done for years and the rules are being put into practice. At the same time, I believe that there is still much to learn. I am talking about the urgency and responsibility of accompanying victims. One of the difficulties that many times arise is that the bishop must be close to his priests, as I have already said, and he must be close to the victims. Some recommend that it not be the bishop directly who receives the victims, but we cannot close our hearts, the door of the church, to people who have suffered from abuse. The responsibility of the bishop is great, and I think we still have to make great efforts to respond to this situation that is causing so much pain in the church. It will take time. We are trying to work together with the other dicasteries. I believe it is part of the mission of our dicastery to accompany bishops who have not received the necessary preparation to deal with this issue. It is urgent and necessary that we be more responsible and more sensitive to this. So, like, I appreciate that. And then they were asking him more follow-up questions. I just wanted to touch on this one thing. He said, certainly there are many differences between one culture and another on how one reacts in these situations. In some countries, the taboo of talking about the subject has already been broken somewhat, while there are other places where victims or victims' families would never want to talk about the abuse they have suffered. In any case, silence is not an answer. Silence is not the solution. We must be transparent and honest. We must accompany and assist the victims, because otherwise their wounds will never heal. There is a great responsibility in this for all of us. So again, like, I appreciate him saying that, at least. Like, that's a good public position to take, even, but we also have to follow that with behavior, right? And again, these are allegations. So, yeah. Okay, moving on. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm confident that we could find. No, sorry. I'm not confident we need bishop or cardinal whose hands were clean issue. So frustrating, but it doesn't necessarily surprise, nor it's just like the sad state of the church. The reason I'm uninterested in being a part of the church as a divine institution, because I see it as deeply flawed and human, just as everything else. So yeah, this is a widespread issue to the point that it ends in both the dioceses that we know he was in. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the girls and the gays. We'll do the gays first. I just wanted to say that. Um, he had a 2012 speech where he was talking about how pop culture created, quote, sympathy for beliefs and practices that are at odds with the gospel. In the speech to bishops, he referenced the, quote, homosexual lifestyle and, quote, alternative families comprised of same-sex partners and their adopted children. So, like, not a slight. I feel like I've seen some people say that this means he's not on the same page as Pope Francis. And I'm like, guys, Pope Francis was calling these fags up until he died. So I don't know. Like,
I have a question.
it doesn't
He
mean
said pop culture has made us empathetic towards the gays. Word.
Yeah, he says that pop culture is creating sympathy for beliefs and practices that are at odds with the gospel.
Sympathy. So is there a
Which,
problem
like,
with sympathy? Like, what is it like? Is that supposed to be negative? Because I get that it's at odds with the gospel, but I
yeah.
mean, like, we're still supposed to be sympathetic and empathetic towards people, even if they share differing.
Okay, here's my thing. And again, I'm not attempting to excuse this behavior, but it was 2012.
That's what I was gonna say
I
as
think that's
well.
like a
Yeah.
very mid take for 2012 in the church.
Yeah.
Like,
That is so
it's
American.
just
Oh my
not
God, culture has
shocking to
like
me.
destroyed family values. That's like very normal, especially in 2012. And that's a good 13 years where he could have sort of evolved his bit to be. I mean, you and I have done a 180 since 2012. Well, you've done
Yeah.
several. But so that is
In 2012, I
2012.
was 10.
Right.
So there's also that. But yeah, no, for real. I think a lot of people, there are politicians, again, not that I want to pretend that's genuine on any level, but there's politicians who have made a 180. Pope Francis, even just over the course of him being the Pope, had pretty radical changes to the ways he talked about gay people, even though he still called us fags up until his deathbed. So yeah, you win some, you lose some. Okay, this is from the, oh my God, what's it called? Like the review, the thing that's like the review of the different popes' opinions on everything that I
Okay.
referenced it earlier in the
The
episode.
Cardinal report.
It's not that important. Yeah, that thing. sorry, I'm scrolling back down. So they give a little context first, and then they give the quote. Oh my God, Veronica, you're gonna have to help me.
Fiducia
Fiducia
supplicans.
supplicans. Yep, thank you. Fiducia supplicans permits spontaneous blessings to couples in a regular situation, arguing that the blessings are not sacraments and do not require, quote, prior moral perfection. But care must be taken to avoid giving the impression of a liturgical ceremony or ritual. So, like, for context, like, this was the thing that made it so that you could, like, bless gay couples, but also, like, you have to be really careful to make sure it doesn't look like gay marriage in the Catholic Church because that's not okay. And it was, like, super, super controversial, even though it was one of those things where it's like, hey, breadcrumbs, breadcrumbs. Anyway.
It's like, so it's not even bare minimum. It's just like you said, a breadcrumb. And it drove everybody fucking crazy. I still worked at Franciscan at the time, and everyone was like, ah, that's crazy. And I was like, God, the actual thing that he did is like so minor. In fact, we already can bless anyone if they ask for a blessing. You just say it, and it's like has all of these like qualifiers on it. Oh, it can't look like and it has to just be spontaneous. It doesn't include like a prayer that you use as a standard, you know. So it's just but this is him being very pro-gay, and the sad part is that it actually kind of is kind of I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like it kind of is for
It's
the
like
church.
unfortunately progressive.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically that's the concept of this thing that the bishop, now Pope, was talking about. And he said in response to that, the bishops in the Episcopal Conferences of Africa were basically saying that here in Africa, our whole cultural reality is very different, ... It wasn't rejecting the teaching authority of Rome. It was saying that our cultural situation is such that the application of this document is just not going to work. Prevost said, you have to remember that there are still places in Africa that apply the death penalty, for example, for people who are living in a homosexual relationship. So we're in very different worlds, the Vatican official added. You know,
so he's
he's
defending the African bishops for fighting back about fiducia supplicans. Because the thing is, you can just say, okay, fine, well, that doesn't really work for us because we don't want to get burned at the stake. I don't really understand. You can still in private bless same-sex couples, even if, like, even in the midst of culture. I thought you were supposed to be counterculture. So I feel like
I thought we were supposed to stand up against the culture, Veronica.
Wow, okay, well,
whatever.
And my first thing that somebody texted me about this Pope is that he's like a little bit pro-gay. And the quote that got sent to me was like, he's like on the same page as Pope Francis, although a little bit more mild. He's like a little bit less vocally supportive. I'm like, this is what it is. This is what supportive looks like.
Okay, but then the thing that's like confusing too, and this is just where I feel like this is not a bishop who's gone out of his way to make like a media career for himself. I think that's also just where there's not a super huge amount of information on some of his positions. Like, it was actually super interesting going through the Cardinal report because a lot of the bishops, there's very clear applications of their view on every single issue. And they only had it for like half of them for him because he's just not quoted in media super frequently. But he's an American bishop, right? So I didn't see, I actually gave her no views, but my friend has a burner account where she stalks rad trads, and Cecilia Papas is over here like crying her eyeballs out because it's apparently this candidate was endorsed by Father James Martin, which I'm like, okay, if Father James Martin endorses him,
right,
then that's interesting on the queer issue. So it's just like maybe there's things we just don't know.
Yeah.
That people who know him personally know. So
I'll share it on the podcast story. Maybe we should like make a story, a whole bunch of stuff we're seeing about it. But because by the time people listen to this, it might not be on the story anymore. But Father James Martin posted something that I did see. I did watch it on my way home from work. Just talking about like having met the Pope and had dinner with him on occasions at like events. And he had like a positive impression of I just in terms of his personality, kindness or whatever. So I'm really curious to hear more about like what that Father James Martin endorsement, you know, is in terms of him being a stand-up guy or in terms of actually being accepting. Because I feel like there is, you know, I don't know. I feel like sometimes people make it, you can be accepting or not accepting, or you can be affirming or not affirming. But, and especially in the Catholic world, I just have seen
There's a
so
spectrum.
many, right, a huge spectrum, because I think what we had at Franciscan came off as accepting compared to some things, you know what I mean? Like, you could sort of say you had same-sex attraction, you weren't conversion therapy, you had like a support group, but they weren't saying y'all should all just marry each other, you know? And that seemed like kind of more positive
Right.
than some environments, but that's actually very
For
not
sure.
affirming compared to other progressive Catholics we've been exposed to since then, who are actually very affirming. So there's like just a huge wide spectrum, and for most rad trads and like radicals, if you're not saying we should burn them at the stake, then you're a liberal Marxist.
It's liberal. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that was the word that Cecilia Papa. Do you say, is it Pappas or Papas? Cecilia
I'm not sure.
Pappas. Like the Pope. I don't even know. She's a Catholic influencer. She has a podcast. Her and I actually had like personal beef back in my Mary and Modesty days. That's a different story for a different time, for a different life, different lifetime. Anyway, I'm pretty sure she has me blocked. That's not important.
Weren't you on, wasn't it on Reddit?
Oh, that's like a different Cecilia Pappas tangent. If you want to read a little bit about it, I do think it is on Reddit. Okay, anyway, now we're gonna get into the girls, because we did the girls and the gays out of order. I wish I had thought about
I'm
this ahead
kind
of
of
time and I would have
scared.
done it in order. So,
I'm kind of scared. I don't know, and I don't know
okay,
any of what you're gonna say.
so some people, this is the whole thing where it's like, okay, people who are just not in the Catholic world, or just like don't understand Catholic politics, or maybe are just like a little delusional about Catholic politics. Everyone kept being like, okay, he opposes female ordination, so he's conservative on that. I'm like, sorry, babes. They all oppose female ordination. I'm so sorry. That was never on the table. Like, any cardinal who supports female ordination was never getting the job. Never getting the job, queen. I'm not
Correct.
saying I think that's like great, but that's okay. Other than that, though, he actually has pretty good. Oh, here, let me read this one quote. During the Synod on Synodality in October 2023, Prevost stated that clericalizing women, that is, ordaining them to clerical roles, would not solve the church's problems and might even create new ones. Sorry, I'm like switching on my AirPods because I'm charging them back. So there's his like little quote on why he opposes female ordination. Otherwise, though, I will say, I think he is pretty progressive on women's role in the church. So this is also from his interview with the Vatican, and they asked him, one of the novelties that the Pope has introduced was to appoint 3 women among the members of the dicastery for bishops. What can you say about their contribution? And he responded, on several occasions, we have seen that their point of view is an enrichment. 2 are religious and 1 is a laywoman, and often their perspective coincides perfectly with what the other members of the dicastery say. But other times, their opinion introduces another perspective and becomes an important contribution to the process. I think their appointment is more than just a gesture on the part of the Pope to say that there are now women here too. This is a real, genuine, and meaningful participation that they offer at our meetings when we discuss the dossiers of candidates. So I appreciated that. I thought that was a nice take. Again, it's like breadcrumbs, but it's a nice take. Okay.
That's really funny. You just said the word dossier, and it made me think of my mother, and then realize that's exactly what they're talking about, who was on the committee for the Archdiocese of Baltimore to review candidates for the seminary. They had a
Oh,
committee of people who would meet with the guys. They would read everything and meet with the guys and then provide their feedback to the bishop, who would make the ultimate decision and whatever. But yeah, they said, just to like give some background for people, I think they had like a canon lawyer who was a priest. They had like one religious sister. They had maybe like a couple other priests, and then they were like the token married couple who were, so there would be like a couple women, because there would be like but they would try to have a married couple to kind of just have like a basic, your normal parishioner type people as well, on top of people who like work in the church and have roles in the church. So, which is kind of cool. And that is a thing that other dioceses have as well. It could be structured differently, but
so, okay. Your mouth has stopped moving, so I think you're done talking. But at the end there, I could not hear some of what you were saying. So I'm just gonna move on. I'm so sorry. Okay, these are his takes on synodality, which was considered a pretty big deal in this election because synodality was Pope Francis's whole thing and one of the big reasons why he was considered alt left by American Catholics. So this was another question that was asked in his interview by the Vatican. The church is engaged in the path that will lead to the Synod on Synodality. What is the role of the bishop? And then he responded, there is a great opportunity in this continuous renewal of the church that Pope Francis is inviting us to promote. On the one hand, there are bishops who openly express their fear because they do not understand where the church is going. Perhaps they prefer the security of answers already experienced in the past. I truly believe that the Holy Spirit is very present in the church at this time and is pushing us towards renewal. And therefore, we are called to the great responsibility of living what I call a new attitude. It is not just a process. It is not just changing some ways of doing things, maybe holding more meetings before making a decision. It is much more. But it is also what perhaps causes certain difficulties, because at the end of the day, we must be able to listen, first of all, to the Holy Spirit, to what he is asking of this church. And then another follow-up question was, how do we achieve this? And he said, we must be able to listen to one another, to recognize that it is not a question of discussing a political agenda or simply trying to promote the issues that interest me or others. Sometimes it seems that we want to reduce everything to wanting to vote and then doing what was voted for. Instead, it is something much deeper and very different. We need to learn to really listen to the Holy Spirit and the spirit of truth-seeking that lives in the church. Move from an experience where authority speaks and it's all over to a church experience that values the charisms, gifts, and ministries that there are in the church. The Episcopal ministry performs an important service, but then we must put all this at the service of the church in the synodal spirit that simply means walking together, all of us, and seeking together what the Lord is asking of us in our time. And then Provost said in a 2023 Vatican press conference, our work is to enlarge the tent and let everyone know they are welcome inside the church. So again, it's not like specifically talking about gay people, but I think the whole like synodal thing, the whole like building a bridge thing, all of this stuff on synodality, the conservatives hate because it is like what within the church is pushing towards more progressive takes on gay people, on divorced people, on women's roles within the church. That's what synodality is pushing. Also, if you're like not super familiar with the term, the Synod on Synodality was basically this like huge thing where it started off on the super local level where they were gathering input and data from like parishioners at a parish level. And then it moved its way up the hierarchy to basically gather like as broad of a perspective of what the actual members of the Catholic Church feel about different issues in the church. And that's what a lot of more conservative people in the church really hate, because they're like, no, the church is the authority of God. We don't listen to just what people want.
It was literally just gathering information too. It wasn't guaranteeing any changes at all. It was just gathering information and asking for feedback, which is like a thing that you're supposed to do to make people feel you're listening to them, to like improve morale in the workplace type of situation. And Pope Francis had already done several, so like he had the Synod on the family and stuff like that. So then the synodality just sort of zoomed out and talked about just the synodal process in general and stuff like that. And it was like more global level instead of just like a meeting with a whole bunch of priests and bishops from around the globe. So, and it was crazy that people like synods aren't anything new. It's not like it's a woke thing. So,
Okay, I still can't hear anything Veronica's saying, so I'm really hoping it comes through on the actual recording. But if anyone's wondering why I'm not like responding to the things she's saying, that's why. I have no clue. It's okay though. We're doing our best and we're pushing through, and we get new internet on Monday. Okay, economic issues. This is one of the things he's also very progressive on. One of the questions he was asked in an interview was, how much do economic problems affect the lives of bishops? He says, the bishop is also asked to be a good administrator, or at least to have the ability to find a good administrator to help him. The Pope has told us that he wants a church that is poor and is for the poor. There are cases where the structures and infrastructure of the past are no longer needed, and it is difficult to maintain them. At the same time, even in the places where I have worked, the church is responsible for educational and health institutions that provide basic services to the people, because many times the state fails to provide them. Personally, I am not of the opinion that the church should sell everything and only preach the gospel in the streets. However, this is a very big responsibility. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. There is a need to promote more fraternal help between the local churches faced with the need to maintain service structures with incomes that are no longer what they used to be. The bishop must be very practical. Cloistered nuns always say, you have confidence and entrust everything to divine providence because a way will be found to respond. The important thing is also to never forget the spiritual dimension of our vocation. Otherwise, we run the risk of becoming managers and reasoning like managers. Sometimes this happens. So that was like, people consider that a fairly progressive take. It's like following the train of Pope Francis's whole like poverty thing, which there's been a history of popes being very luxurious and managing wealth appropriately.
I don't know if you can hear me, actually, but Pope Francis, for example, recently changed the rules about a pope's burial, where you had to be buried in 3 coffins. And he changed it so you would just be in 1 coffin, like a normal person. Also, I'm so sorry. Evelyn's giving me a look, so I don't think she can hear me. Go ahead.
Okay. Immigration. Okay, this is where we get into him hating on Trump a little bit more. He reposted a tweet written by someone else that read, there is nothing remotely Christian, American, or morally defensible about a policy that takes children away from their parents and warehouses them in cages. This is being carried out in our name, and the shame is on us all. And that post was a retweet of, in 2018, of a post by Cardinal Blaise J. Cupich, something like that. He also reshared an article from America, the Jesuit Review, about a letter written on immigration by Pope Francis and wrote, Pope Francis's letter, J.D. Vance's Ordo Amoris, and what the gospel asks of us all on immigration. That article said in part, even though it is written to the bishops and is responding to the president and vice president, this letter poses an implicit question to the whole church in the United States. Will we subject our political debates on immigration to the scrutiny of the gospel or not? So he's very progressive on immigration, which is a slay. Obviously, he spent most of his life in Latin America, so I fucking hope so. But that is, I think that's like a very important foil to the Trump administration. So we appreciate that one. And then climate change. He recently stressed that the church must move, quote, from words to action, warning against the, quote, harmful consequences of unchecked technological development and advocating for a reciprocal, non-tyrannical, God, I wish I knew how to say words and not just read them, tyrannical relationship with the environment. He aligns closely with Pope Francis's environmental priorities. So, slay. And then there's a couple more quotes that I didn't know what to stick them in, but I just think they're nice. We have to seek together to be a missionary church, a church that builds bridges and dialogue, always ready to accept, like this great piazza with its arms. We have to show our charity, presence, and dialogue with love. Another quote. The bishop is not supposed to be a little prince sitting in his kingdom, but is called authentically to be humble, to be close to the people he serves, to walk with them, to suffer with them, which I've seen a bunch of people reposting that one today. And yeah, the bishop is a pastor and not a manager, which I like that one too, because it just seems like he doesn't have a huge power trip about being the pope, which is like the scary thing when you get a conservative pope who's like on a really big power trip. So yeah, I liked that. And then in that same interview where he said the bishop is a pastor, not a manager, he said, we often are worried about teaching doctrine, but we risk forgetting that our first duty is to communicate the beauty and joy of knowing Jesus, which also is giving like open doors. When he was asked in an interview about what qualities a bishop should have, he said he also needs the ability to listen to his neighbor and seek advice, as well as psychological and spiritual maturity. A fundamental element of the portrait of a bishop is being a pastor, capable of being close to the members of the community, starting with the priests for whom the bishop is father and brother, to live this closeness to all without excluding anyone. That's the last quote I have. I liked that one because I think just like what's scary about American fundamentalist Catholicism or such a nationalism kind of period is that it's just like void of empathy. It's void of a willingness to listen to the lived experiences of people. And so all of his stuff on synodality, all of his stuff on community, all of his stuff on actually listening to people, actually being humble, like I appreciate that. I think it's an important perspective. I'm not here to say that the man is some sort of like liberal icon. He is definitely a centrist, maybe a little bit liberal as far as Catholic standards go. But I definitely, like I said at the beginning of the episode, like there could have been way worse choices. I'm fairly happy with this as far as a choice for Pope, but that doesn't mean I think he's like the greatest person ever. So yeah, that's my take. I'm really hoping, thankfully, we got to hear Veronica for most of the episode. I'm really hoping because it records locally on our computers that when hers finished uploading, you get to hear what she said at the end and I get to hear it when I edit it. But okay, I'm going to close us out in case Veronica's audio is still not here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Feel free to subscribe to us on Patreon. We're working on getting a book club started over there. Oh, also, there's a new book that just came out about Catholic fundamentalism. Like it literally just dropped. So believe it will be here and will be a part of the book club because I can't wait. They talk about the Benedict option. Okay, now I'm butchering this too. I'm so fucking excited. It's going to be gold. So we're going to do that. We have a few things. Veronica's been reading a book about the closet of the Vatican, gay people in the Vatican. Super interesting, super fascinating. Also, sorry, this is like a little bit of a tangent, but I got this comment on TikTok the other day when I was talking about the Bishop Robert Barron thing. And I love TikTok because you just get people who have no idea who you are. And they were like, oh, look, like a girl whose bio is lesbian life in LA, thinking her voice has any merit on the politics of the Catholic Church. I was like, bitch, you don't know who the fuck I am because I know what I'm talking about theologically. I know you're not going to take my opinion seriously, but I'm not just like some random bitch with a microphone in Los Angeles. I moved to Los Angeles to escape a Catholic cult. And until next week, keep living, laughing, and loving.